Okay, you're looking to move to Orlando, Florida, and you want to know what's the real good and bad to living in Orlando. Because I promise you, it's not all paradise. It's not like this perfect place where all your problems will go away. In this video, I'm going to cover 5 amazing things that I found that I think are really great when living here, but also 5 things that might turn you away, and you need to hear them because it might change your perspective of moving to Orlando. Let's get into it. What's up, everyone? My name is Cameron Hodge. On this channel, I talk about living and making the move to Orlando, Florida. I'm not from here myself, and I love to share my journey and help you make the decision. Every Tuesday and Thursday, I drop a video giving you the most information possible when making the move out here. Also, what I love as well, being a licensed real estate agent in Florida, is helping you make your real estate decisions when moving to Orlando, Florida, and helping you make that seamless transition, because I promise you, the smallest step can cause some serious pain, and I know I went through a lot when I moved here. So if that's you, there's a number popping up below so I can get a hold of me. Call, text, email, whatever you have to do. I have your back when moving to Orlando, Florida, and I will make sure that everything goes seamless because, man, it's a lot that goes into it. So getting into the video, obviously I have 5 pros and 5 cons that I have found since living in Orlando. I've done this video previously, but I always like to redo it because like when it comes to living in any place, like the longer you live there, certain things come up that you're like, oh man, like, you know, I didn't really notice this before, but it kind of grinds my gears, if you know what I'm saying. So I kind of just wanted to shoot another one, see if we can get into it. So number 1, and that is it's tropical paradise. And this is a pro. So it's like, think about it, right? So especially if you lived on the East Coast, you grew up in like New York, the Northeast, or maybe you just came here in vacation for Disney World, like a lot of people. And you know, you're living somewhere where people come here for the tropical paradise. They come to run like the blizzards and like the nasty winter that the North experiences every year. And guess what? You don't have to deal with snow. Like how great of a place that is. Like you're living somewhere where you don't have to deal with snow. I mean, I still remember growing up, you know, even until 19 when I left New York, and I still remember, you know, you'd go to leave for work in the morning, go to leave for school, and say woke up a little bit late. It happens. You get outside and you can't see. So and because your windshield's iced over. So what do? You jam the window down. You know, back in those days, it was cranked, no electric windows. For those who didn't even know that cars used to have non-electric windows, you had to crank that. And you crank those windows down, have your head out the side as you're like driving down the road. Look, there's other ways around it, but like it's serious though. Like that's growing up in winter area. Like there's like the snow, the ice. Look, I enjoy winter, but let's all be honest. Like after Christmas is done and once January hits, like you're kind of like done with it. You're kind of like, okay, I could go back to some non-snowy weather. It'd be kind of nice. Well, in Florida, yeah, like the temperature drops down a little bit during the winter. It's not like it is during the hot and humid summer, spring and summer, you know, and early fall. But like you're living somewhere where people vacation. And I think, you know, a lot of times being here longer is like to take a step back and to realize that, you know what, like I am very blessed to be living somewhere where I used to vacation here for the amazing weather. And now I get to wake up every day, walk outside and enjoy it. You know, I have a rooftop deck. I can go up top and I can just look out over the landscape and just really appreciate, you know, being able to like have a bonfire in the backyard year round. You know, like it's having that blessing and being able to enjoy it every single day of the year, which is just completely awesome. And I love it every single second. The second one is like there's so much to do. Oh, man, so like growing up in New York, I lived in California previously before coming here. I've been a lot of places because of the military. You know, California was great and all. It had its good things. You know, I'll get definitely related a bit, you know, later on what I didn't like. But, you know, growing up in New York, right, growing up in the country, we had a Six Flags. And that's about it. You know, I grew up hunting and fishing, more hunting than fishing. My dad probably wished I got into fishing a lot more than I did, but you know, that's just what I did. Like there was still a ton of great experiences growing up in that life, and you can still get that here in Florida. So don't think that just because you're coming to Florida and Orlando that you can't have an outdoor lifestyle, because that's just completely not true. Yes, obviously you're not going to be living in downtown. But you could live in downtown or live in Dr. Phillips, and you could drive to places where you could hunt and fish and things like that. Fishing is obviously more relative. There's a lot of lakes and things like that, but you know what I'm saying? Like you can actually drive and be able to do those things. It's not like you're having to go super far. Like in California, like I didn't even bother hunting because I'm like, where the heck am I going to go? You know, like where am I going to drive to? This whole state's just locked down when it comes to that. that way of life. And growing up like I did in the country, like, I grew up in a small town. I wouldn't say I'm like country. Like I had friends that were farmers and things like that, but I just grew up in like the small town in the country. So, but that was a way of life. And here in Florida, now I get to enjoy some of those things, but my wife and kids get to experience, everything. I have so many options. We found dinosaur parks, if you're heading towards Lakeland, so towards Tampa, heading west on the 4, there's a dinosaur park. I can't think of the name of it right now. It's going to bother me, but oh well. But that's an awesome place. Look it up. Like, it's so much fun with the kids. They take such good care of it. It has a lot of fossils and dinosaur statues. It's super cool. It's enclosed, so you can just let the kids go crazy. I love it. Also, like if you head east, I've been to awesome like nature preserves where they rescue animals. And like, because obviously in Florida, you can have a lot of exotic animals, and a lot of owners will get them and be like, wow, there's a lot of work to take care of these animals. So they'll bring them in, raise them, and then you can go pay a super small fee, be able to go through that. And obviously you have the staples. You have Disney World, you have Busch Gardens, you have all these parks, Legoland, Peppa Pig Land now, and they have all these things between here to Tampa. You can go to Tampa, go to Top Golf. Have you ever been to a Top Golf? You don't even have to golf. It's a blast. It's super fun, especially on Friday nights. But you have all these things for you to do here. I have it's still I still find small town things. That's what I didn't fully enjoy when I lived in California, is there really weren't small town things. Like if you went out of the middle of nowhere to small town, at least in Southern California, it didn't really feel like small town. It just felt like people who were trying to survive. And we're all trying to survive in our own way, but that, being in Florida, I really do get to go to the family small business restaurants. There's so many small businesses, and I love that. I love that it's a place where you can still find community. Sure, you can get lost in the city, in the suburbs, or it's so easy. There's so many groups, there's so many networks, there's so many people that aren't from here that you have all these things that have come together there's just so much to do. And I know I've had locals that go against it, they hate the tourism, but look, one, you choose to live in an area that's because of Disney World, this has been a tourist trap for how long now, but also at the same time, it gives you options. And I think it's a great thing. And I think everyone, even you're looking just to get a second home, it's an awesome place to visit. I love it. And that's one of the things I think have really stood out to me that I didn't really expect, was how much there is to do for the kids and me and my wife. And there's just so many options to actually have a fulfilled life and not have really be wanting in many areas. So it's a great thing. Now, the third is cost of living. Now, I'm going to preface this. Now, this is a newer video. I'm going to go over this. Obviously, this country is gas is super expensive and things like that, but it is relative, right? You look in California, I've heard that there's still gas prices that are I bet you it'll be $10 by the time I'm recording this video by the end of August 2022. I bet you it's going to be up there. It's crazy, absolutely crazy. And obviously Florida is a little bit cheaper than that. But I am going to tell you, it's not the cheapest place that's ever been there. But at the same time, if you're coming from, depending where you're coming from, unless it's the middle of nowhere, Wisconsin or something like that, or New York, or middle of nowhere, it's going to be way more affordable than a lot of places. You can still find starter homes at lower budgets, around $350 and stuff like that. You can still find options. And that's closer to the center of Orlando. That's not even if you're willing to drive an extra hour away or something like that, there's still those options as well. You can always work your way towards the center if that's what you desire. But really, I think it's cheaper. No income tax. If you're a disabled veteran, from my disabled vets out there, you are exempt from property taxes at a full rating of 100%. So that's cool as well. If you're a disabled veteran, that's an extra support that the state gives you. And there's definitely some things that aren't great about it, but overall, I just think the cost of living is amazing. I can still find ways. I don't have to go to Disney World. I can go to parks that are way cheaper, and probably way better companies anyways, and go give money to them, and my kids can still have an amazing time. And that's what I enjoy about the area. Is I don't feel in California, I felt, even New York too, I feel I was forced to pay tons of money to go do stuff. No matter what I did. Want to go to the beach? Fantastic. Going to pay you have to pay parking, tons of parking. You want to stay in a hotel on the beach? Good. That's $300 a night. It's just crazy. It's just, and here in Florida, I just have options. That's the greatest thing. It's cost of living. Is people say, oh, it's expensive. I'm well, yeah, you're trying to live in Dr. Phillips. You got to branch out. But that's the great thing I realized, especially being a professional as myself, when people reach out, I'm also most people have solid budgets, and they really just, if you're coming from an out-of-state income and you're maintaining that income, pretty much you probably have a really wide range of options where you can go. But even if you have a lower budget, like we did when we first moved here, like we were still able to find options. Like, sure, you might just be like, oh, like, you know, California, like I can be like, you're willing to drive to the middle of the desert? You can get a home for 80 grand out there where you're not even near jobs. You know what I mean? But out here in Florida, I can be like, hey, are you willing to drive like 40 minutes? Like, yeah, I can drive 40 minutes. I'm like, fantastic. We can find something for you. And it's like being able to have options. Like, that's all I want. It's all I want. It's what I believe in is I want options. So I believe Florida gives that. I think it's something that's amazing. Now, number 4 is beaches. Like, obviously, oh man, so like you, especially if you're coming from the West Coast, like those beaches are just rocky. They're not beaches. Now, if you're coming from Hawaii, okay, different story. I get it. They're awesome. But Florida, like Clearwater Beach and like really any beach, like it's the soft sand. It is not like the West Coast, you know. And obviously people come from like Myrtle Beach and stuff like that, totally different story as well. But like you are living in a place where you don't have to live near the beach, but it's not too complicated to go enjoy the beach life. You know, like I mentioned before, like we, you know, you spend 150, 200 bucks a night for like a condo suite on the bay in Clearwater. Like if there's still ways to fully enjoy that life, but not be next to it, right? The beaches are awesome. The water's warm most of the year. Like it's great. And having that option to go out there, like if you've been to California as well on the West Coast, that water is freezing all the time. It's annoying. It's not my thing. I remember when I first went out to California and like I went into the water, I was like, what the heck? Like, why is this water so cold? Like, who the heck put the ice in, you know? Because I grew up on the East Coast and that's just not how beaches were for me. Also, like over there, like, so it does get crowded here. Obviously, beaches do get crowded. Like, there's only so many, and everyone goes there. But in California, like, beaches were always segmented to the point where, like, you'd spend half the day finding parking if you didn't show up at 4 a.m. Like, it's obnoxious. Like the fact that you would have to spend all this time searching for parking and things like that. And here in Florida, like the beaches, there's a lot of beaches, so it spreads people out a little bit. And really, if you talk to locals when you get out here and things like that, you can start to find beaches that are, you know, when's a good time to go, when's a good time not to go, and you know, you can figure that out. But the beaches are awesome, and they're way better than I think anywhere else in the continental U.S. And then the 5th pro that I think really stood out to me is the freedom. And it's so growing up in New York for 19 years, spending 6 or so years in Southern California. Like I've always been permanently in states that restricted by like somehow, like running a business over there. Like you can make no money in a year, still had to pay the state $800 after the first year. Like what the heck? Like, you know what I mean? Like it's just crazy. You know, I was always saying inside like 25% for taxes and all this stuff. And you know, like I mentioned before in the cost of living video, like it's like you'll spend like probably 18% of your income as a regular W-2 worker in taxes somehow. Like property sales tax, like property tax is lower over there, but it's the cost of houses that obviously make it so bad. But it's, you know, you barely had the right to defend yourself if you wanted to. Like you know, the schools like being so restrictive and like the rules, like especially when COVID happened, they shut down so hard. Like I watched so many small businesses just get wiped off the face of the earth. Like restaurants that have been in the business since the 40s, like they were told to shut down, and they couldn't reopen, and they're gone. But you know that McDonald's on the corner is still gonna be open. It's things like that that just got to me. And coming to Florida, I realized it's just like it's the mentality of a lot of people. You know, they're really just like, I want to have freedom. I want to just live my life. You know, like I mentioned before, people from the UK, Canada, pretty much I've met every person from every state in the country, and then some. Puerto Rico, Cuba, and it's like all these people are together. And yet, there's always gonna be bad eggs. You know, but if you find trouble, like I mentioned before, if you look for trouble in Florida, you will find it. But if you're just here to live your life, like there's so much freedom and opportunity to still do things. Obviously, the country as a whole right now is just chaos. It's nuts. And I'm sure if you're watching this, all that extra pressure of cost is just adding into the stress of trying to figure out if you should move here. But I can tell you that if you find a way to make the move, you get out here, like you start to realize what you were missing. Like and it's not even politics. It's just, you know, it's just you have the ability to do more things. You can defend your family. You can still have cheap things to do with your family. Like there's still good schools. You just have options. Like that's all I've ever wanted in my life. And you know, me and my wife, like we wanted options. We wanted the choice to choose what I wanted and not have to be a freaking millionaire to do it. And while Florida is getting more expensive, especially as people continue to move here, it's still a place that I feel it's still, when you look at the whole country, it's still relatively affordable because you have the option to go to different places. And Orlando, yes, Orlando has jumped up immensely in the last couple of years. But that's every market in the United States. Like I said, I still have connections over in Southern California when I had that business there, and it's every single place in the country. So like, it's people that are maintaining, that have been living there for a while that feel it the most. Those that are relocating tend to not feel the burden as much because they're probably leaving a place where they had no freedoms and they were spending out the yin yang just to make ends meet. So a great thing about it. Now let's transition into the cons. Like, these are 5 things that just have annoyed me since moving here, and I think it really could turn someone away. And the first one I'm going to say is the weather. Okay, so even when it comes to like my wife's family, when they visit and things like that, that's the only complaint people have, is they complain about the weather, the humidity, the heat, the hurricanes. I guess I can tell you, being in Orlando, like, hurricanes are not bad. Like, I've experienced them on South Carolina and like just like Miami and things like that. It is not like that. They can still, obviously, if it's a category 5, like, it can still be bad. There's still flooding, and tornadoes that get spun up from hurricanes coming in. So don't think that you're immune from natural disaster, because you're not, right? And if you can't live with that, just quit the video right now and you know what I mean? But if you want to keep hearing what the rest of the cons are and you're undecided, let's continue on. So, but like the weather, obviously, yes, it's humid during the summer. It is super humid, but during the winter, I love it. It's a tropical paradise during the winter. Late fall, winter, to early spring, it's a tropical paradise, and it's just not that bad. And it's really great that you can come here and enjoy the beach and stuff like that and not be stuck in like, snow like 8 months out of the year, So it's really awesome. But the summer is brutal. So you have to experience both sides. The winter, but definitely come during the summer when it's brutal, it's humid, and then you can decide right then and there, like, can I handle this or can I not handle this? Because there's really only 2 types of people that I've learned from people reaching out and having these conversations. Like, can you handle the humidity and the heat? And can you not? So what do you do for work? Well, I work a desk job. I'm like, okay, so you're going from AC at work to AC at home. So, and when you're outside, it's by choice. So is it really that bad? It's not like you're laying asphalt on roads during the summer. And like, oh, good point. And if you are, hey, you can decide if that's the right decision for you to where you can handle it. But the weather, nominal. Okay, and the second con is it's becoming more expensive. So I know I covered this in one of the pros, is that it's still a cheaper place to live. But at the same time, it could be a con. So if you're on the lower end of the income spectrum and you're just trying to get your life going, you're trying to make it work, Orlando might be slightly out of your budget. If you're not looking at condos and homes, you're like, look, I want to get a house. Well, look, the average home is definitely closer to $400,000 for Orange County. And yes, like I said before, you can travel farther away to get cheaper places, but at the same time, it may not be a place where you're like, look, I don't want to travel that far, because those places that are farther don't have, maybe you don't like the schools, maybe you don't like to be that far from your job, because then you're driving most of the days during the week and you're not spending more time with your kids, and that all just adds up into something that just bothers you. So that is one downfall in Florida, is that because it's become so popular, it's not as cheap as it used to be. But at the same time, it's the whole freaking country. Like, it's everywhere has more expensive gas. Everywhere the food's more expensive. Like, look, I think Florida's one of the better places that, like, they're doing their best. There's so much more that can be done better. Like, I'm not a fan of like any politician. If you talk to me, you'll find out that's just a God's honest truth. But at the same time, it's at least there's opportunity. There's still chances to get in and make things work. Especially if you're looking, let's say you move here and you really want to get rental properties or something like that. Like, there's still opportunity out there, even at the price points. It's not like, Southern California or like New York City, where like, good luck trying to get a rental property, because who's going to have that kind of money sitting around? So there's still opportunity. There's still options for you to be able to get in and make it work, but it is becoming more expensive. And I don't just mean that, I mean like home prices in general. So that it is something that's going to weigh on you when you make the move here. But like I said, it all comes down to your situation, which is why it's important you reach out, because I can help you kind of pinpoint areas that you should consider to find out what fits your budget and if it makes sense for you. So the third con is it's crowded. So it's a con because it's still a very big vacation area. So like, especially between like, Disney World heading west towards Tampa, like it just gets so bogged down with snowbirds, which if you don't know what snowbird is, it's people that come here only for the winter and they head back up during the summer to the north or wherever the heck they come from. So it gets crowded with them on top of tourists that are heading to these theme parks and attractions. So like, on top of everyone moving here and stuff like that, like even in 10 years, the gap between when I first came back to Orlando a couple years ago and now, insane how much more new construction, parks, people, like it's not like it used to be. Keep in mind, when Disney World first came here, like it was nothing but orange groves. And they looked at Walt Disney like he was crazy. Like, why the heck are you building anything here? But he saw the opportunity. And I promise you the opportunity is still here. But if you're like me and you don't like people, make sure you reach out when you have that conversation, because it is so important that you choose a location that makes sense for you. Or maybe you want some more land. You know, maybe you have to fit in like, oh, I only want to drive this far, but I want a little bit of land. Like my wife's super big in the gardening. Like we want chickens. We want, cow one day. Like we'll get there. But we want all those things to where we can enjoy our own sanctuary with our kids, to where we can kind of, if we don't want to go out to deal with the crowds, we don't have to. And that's something to keep in mind. But also, like, obviously traffic gets really bad during those times too. So it all plays into it. But yes, it is still crowded, especially during the winter when everyone comes down here. It's just more crowded. Like the blessing of those hot, humid summers is like when you go to like off the beaten path parks and things like that, it's great, because most likely than not, if it's during the work week and it's super hot and humid, no one's gonna be there. And then like I've literally gone to like that animal preserve, and it felt like when we walked to the park, it felt like we had our own park, this own place to ourselves. It was awesome. We get to speak to the people. We get to ask more in-depth questions, and it's awesome because our kids are there, and it's having that opportunity. Because realize when things get hard or like hot and humid and things like that, people break off. So if you're willing to deal with it, like it actually could be a blessing in disguise. But it's crowded. It is what it is. And then the fourth one is wildlife. Obviously, it's Florida. Everything wants to kill you here. You know, whether it's meth head Joe down the street or it's alligators in the lake, like snakes, spiders, like it's Florida. Even like you look in the history of Florida, it is always a place where people, like there's always something trying to get you, you know, but it's just, most of the time what I tell people is like, look, most people are living in the suburbs, things like that. You're not going to deal with it. You know, I mean, yeah, I've heard stories like, you know, close to Miami and even here where alligators break in through the screen netting of pools and stuff like that. But you're going to be able to see it. Like, you know, again, like you're not letting your kids just go anywhere by themselves. Like in a lot of these situations, these terrible stories you'll find, it's situations where you probably can look at it and go, what the heck was that person thinking? Like there was one recently where a man got eaten by an alligator, I think in the last month or so. But it's because, you know, it was a man who, I think it was near a disc golf course, and he climbs into the lake to collect the discs so he can sell them. Well, guess what? It has signs everywhere saying don't go in there because of the alligators. Which is why people don't get their discs. So it, like a lot of these situations, it's just using your common sense. And if you don't know how to act with the area, there are so many classes and natives and people, I mean natives by people that have been in Florida for a long time, that can teach you like what plants are poisonous, you know, the wildlife and things like that. Like we actually just randomly at that place we went to, we got a small little class about that as well. It's super informative, really great. And it's like anything, you know, if you don't know the area, you know, get here and learn about it. Like find someone who's an expert in it and talk to them, learn about it, you know, learn about, hey, if I go hiking, you know, near water and things like that, like how do I want to be careful? What if I have my dog with me? What are things I should do with my dog and things like that? So preface it. But if you're like, you can't handle bugs, can't handle things that want to get you, maybe it's not the place for you, and you probably should just run away and maybe go to like, I don't know, Minnesota or something. And the last con is going to be, so if major sports are a big thing, this can be a good and a bad thing. You know, with Orlando, I'm okay with being a football and hockey fan, driving the hour and a half to Tampa. It might not be a full hour and a half. I'm going to say peak traffic, it's terrible, whatever, hour and a half. And I want to go watch football or hockey. I'm willing to make that drive because my teams don't come to town all the time. And I'd only be watching games when the Bills or the Sabres come to play, right? Like that's when I would go and watch games. In Orlando, obviously you have basketball, but if that's not a sport you care about, you will have to drive to go see those things. And it's not a con for everyone. You might be watching this and you're like, Cameron, I don't even care about sports. Like that is the last reason why I'm moving here. Hey, I thought the same thing. But at the same time, if you are really big into sports, keep in mind that you will have to travel to do that. Now, Tampa, we decided not to live in because the price point naturally is going to be higher. It's great things about Tampa, but also things we didn't like at the time. And that's why we didn't. But, at the same time, it's, if you're willing to make that traveling distance to go watch a team, especially if you're not from here, you're probably going to be watching sports teams that don't come most of the year. So you probably don't have to worry about that travel time. But keep in mind, if that's something that really bothers you and you want that sport atmosphere, Tampa's gonna be the place to be. Orlando, yes, it has basketball, but I didn't grow up watching basketball. You know, if that's something you're super big into, fantastic, you have it, and this won't be a con, it'll actually probably be a pro. But I hope this gave you a good idea, some pros and some cons about living in Orlando. I know it's not a perfect situation. You know, there's good things, there's bad things, and honestly, like, you won't know until you come out here, make a discovery trip, and figure it out yourself. Or if you want to kind of skirt some of that learning experience, give me a call, give me a text, email. This number popping up below is how you can get a hold of me. It is me answering the phones by phone, text. I am here to help you make the move out here. We definitely made so many mistakes when we moved out here, and still some pains that I actually am still dealing with to this day. So it's always important to make sure you make the right decisions when coming out here, and I'm here to help you make that move. So hope you enjoyed this video, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.